Welcome to the Course Reports, on site, your real deal inside look into professional golf venues around the world. Today, we're at Bethpage State Park, the Black Course. You know, one of the hardest golf courses on the planet. I'm Curtis Tyrell, Certified Golf Course Superintendent, Master Greenskeeper. I'm your host. It's time to get on the green. It's time for the Course Reports. We couldn't be more excited to be bringing you the first edition of the Course Reports on site from Bethpage State Park Black Course, site of the 2019 PGA Championship. You know, the whole purpose of the Course Reports is to take you behind the scenes, give you the inside information into golf course conditioning, agronomy, architecture, and really what it takes to get a golf course ready for television and what you watch each week. Today, on this episode, we're going to talk to Andy Wilson, the Director of Agronomy here at Bethpage Black, as well as the Head Golf Course Superintendent Mike Hadley. We're going to talk about the turf, the greens, the fairways, the rough, the bunkers. We're going to bring it to you all. We're going to show you some great stuff. Thanks for watching. Andy, the Masters just ended. You're about 30 days from the PGA Championship. How's everything going?
Pretty good, pretty good. We're pretty happy with the way the course is looking. A couple of heavy rains recently, but it's good for the rough, good for the course. We're getting nice and green compared to even last week when we were still a little straw colored in areas, and yeah, we're pretty happy.
And you've been here a long time. Tell us about how long you've been working here at Bethpage.
I started working here in the summer of 1989, actually. So then been here, full time since I graduated college, and then 1997, when Craig Currier came out here, that's basically the same day I started out on the golf maintenance side of things. So I was here for the restoration and through both Opens and Barclays, and yeah, it's been a good
So
good
here
trip.
at Bethpage, you've worked on golf maintenance, but you've worked all over the
Oh yeah,
golf
before
course.
that I worked
Okay.
at the clubhouse, so I've sold tickets, I was a starter, I've helped prep for tournaments, so yeah, I definitely have some institutional knowledge of the place, and just yeah, and I've seen it come from where clover was sort of the dominant vegetation on the golf course to where we are today. So it's pretty satisfying. This is this view is sort of the eureka moment of the golf course where it really kind of catches your eye, and then it's something special at this point.
Yeah, I tell you what, I mean, looking out at the fourth hole there, I mean, those fairways look pretty narrow. I mean, what on average is the width of the fairways?
I would say 25 yards is probably about it. A couple spots where we have some dog legs, they might extend a little further. The ninth fairway is pretty wide. But yeah, especially when you get onto the back stretch, 15, 16, 18, it's not much more than 25, 24 yards. Correct. Yeah, you got to hit it long and you got to be precise. The rough will get you. Yeah.
So what are we playing on here? What kind of grass you growing on the green surfaces?
POA, and more POA. We're predominantly POA. We kind of manage for that. There were actually a few conversations about going over to bent grass after the O2 Open, or even before that, even with the fairways. But we do about 30,000 rounds a year, and the bent just really wasn't taking the traffic. We experimented with bent on the collars a little bit, and it would look good for a certain amount of time, and then the collars, just wouldn't last. So the POA is pretty resilient to the traffic, and that's really why it's a preferred grass here.
So this is a classic Poa green in the middle of spring, right? It's got a lot of different colors, a lot of different stages of the grass just starting to get growing. What's really great about Poa, what makes it such a fantastic putting surface, is the density of it. It's so fine. There are thousands and thousands of shoots per square inch. It's just crazy. And the plant goes straight up, okay? So the leaf blade doesn't tend to lay over on Poa. It grows straight up. So you get a really stiff, smooth putting surface. And these are looking great. Right now they're cutting them just under 1/8 of an inch. They're gonna go lower for the tournament, and that's gonna make for a really true surface. For early April, this fairway is looking great. It's in great shape, and they're gonna be mowing this just around 3/8 of an inch. So really tight, really firm surfaces for the championship. That's gonna graduate into this first cut of rough, which is somewhere in the 1.5 inch, 1.25 range, and it's about 1 mower width wide, about 4 feet wide. And then you're gonna be moving into the primary rough, which is gonna be pretty nasty and gnarly. Right now you can just see it's really irregular as all the grasses are just starting to grow. But like we talked about, it's gonna continue to uniform out as we move closer to the event and be really nice and thick for the championship. One of the most beautiful things about the Bethpage Black Golf Course is all of the fescue grasses that surround the roughs, the fairways, the greens and such. And so you've got a lot of fine fescues and some broom sedge and blue stems all mixed in. And what's interesting is if the tournament was held a little later in the year, these fescues would all be a lot taller, They'd be much more golden in color, but they're really just getting going, and what you're seeing is kind of what you're going to see in the tournament. So the brown stuff that you see, the taller grasses, is your broom sedge and your blue stem grasses, and then the fescues really aren't going to be proliferating very much. They're going to be subtle, so probably a lot less penal than they would be later in the season. Well, the bunkers here at Bethpage Black are really something else. There's tons of steep faces, lots of high elevation, and a lot to deal with for the players. From a raking and a maintenance standpoint, the guys here are using what we're calling the Australian method. It's really caught on a few years ago, where you have a smooth face and a raked center. And the idea behind that is that by less raking on a daily basis to the faces, that the sand will hold its pack longer and you'll get less fried eggs. And then that way, when the ball comes flying into the face, it'll hit, release, and roll down into the raked area. So during tournament week, look for this unique style of bunker raking and look for the balls to hit in the face and roll to the bottom. With the event moving from August to May, what were your biggest concerns, if any, with that change?
Well, you know, preparing for an August tournament is what we were preparing for a few years, and that was, you know, in August we need to have, and the Barclays was in August, or the FedEx playoffs were in August. Yeah. So we started focusing more on how to irrigate our rough and keep it going, you know, through the whole summer, because we get a lot of play, we get beat up. So we started redoing our irrigation system to have our rough coverage, and now that, you know, we might not even use that before the tournament this year.
Right.
So the focus turns, you know, you start thinking about seed head control and, you know, how the grass is how you're gonna get the grass growing to be, you know, major worthy, and basically a month time we have. Right. You know, it just started growing now, and, you know, what can you get away with in such a short period of time? Right. You know, can you do much? Can you do any aerification? Can you do any verticutting? What can you do? So the last couple of years, when it was finally announced that it was moving to May, we tried to alter our plan and try to test things out and see what we could get away with, see what would work. Sure, I'd like to have a couple more tries at it, but this is the one. So, you know, I think we got a good plan in place, and, you know, we're gonna roll with it.
What's on your radar between now and the first shot? I mean, anything in particular you're focused on? Or I know you got focused on a million things, but, you know, what are the main items that you're thinking about?
I mean, my job, I focus on the turf. We were blessed with a good winter. 3 years ago, we had, you know, really bad winter kill and had to go through that, and the whole, basically, you know, getting the greens back to where you want them. Right. And last year we had a really good year, and just it continued into the, you know, fall and into this spring. And I really like where the short grass is at, tees, fairways, greens, and I feel like we can get them where we want them. I mean, we're just going to be doing our normal maintenance, and, you know, if we do that, we know from history that they're going to be tournament ready, you know, that week.
We cut and roll almost every day, I would say, and then, you know, maybe one day a week we just cut and one day a week we just roll, but I would say we're cutting and rolling 5 days a week. Okay. And, you know, it's a little different for the other courses, but for the Black, that's how we need to get them up to.
And for the PGA Championship, you're almost going to double those repetitions.
Correct, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
right.
And then in the evenings, it's sort of a see where they're at. Will it be another roll? Could it be another mow? Right. That'll also depend on maybe how much grass we're getting and where we're at in terms of POA regulation and all that.
Right. So we're here on the 16th green, and this green today has been groomed, mowed, and rolled twice. Once with a traditional golf course roller and once with a 1-ton roller. And these are just some of the kind of things that go on to prepare a golf course and a golf course green for a major championship. You know, the speeds today are probably in the 9-10 area, and who knows what they're going to have them for championship week, but you can be sure they're going to be faster than that. But in order to get it there, they've got to do a lot of things to groom the grass and promote the health of the turf, and part of that is what you see today. You can kind of see some grooming lines here in front of me, you know, from the groomer moving through and pulling the blades up so they can get a real fine cut on the turf. And then they roll it to smooth it all back out. And by the time they get to championship week, they will have done at least 1, maybe 2 really light top dressings to firm up the surface and smooth everything out. And so we talked about these POA seed heads with Andy. And these seed heads on Poa annua can be a real challenge for superintendents, especially on the greens. If they start to come forward when players are putting, you can get a really bumpy surface, so it's important to try to control them. In the rough, it's not as big of a deal. And what's really interesting about it is there are thousands of seeds just in this little seed head here, and that's why Poa annua moves throughout the country, throughout golf courses in such an aggressive way, and why it's so hard to control. So we talked with both Andy and Mike about what their one concern was in terms of being ready for the championship in about a month. And both of them said they really want the rough to start growing. And as you can see on the trees behind me, we got no leaves yet. The rough is still kind of clumpy, a little bit thin in some places. But in a month from now, this is going to look a lot different. The soil temperatures are working in their favor. They've got some nice spring rains, and this stuff is going to be lush and as thick as they want it to be, and really as penal as they want it to be for the championship. You know, one of the advantages of having a PGA Championship in May in New York versus August is in May, you're on the upswing of your growth curve. The weather is working with you, and August is kind of working against you. So this is going to be a whole different look come May, and it's going to be a whole different level of playability as well. How many acres of stuff do you have happening here?
In terms of actual acreage that we're working on, you know, maybe in 25 acres worth when you factor in all the gravel roads and the bus terminals and staging areas for these guys and all their equipment.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good bit. The build itself, we started in October laying gravel, I believe.
Yep.
Making sure that these guys had basically protection for the golf course behind all these structures so they could stage their build.
Right. So you mentioned you just opened yesterday.
Yeah.
So when do you close?
We're open for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And we close the 29th, I believe is the last official day.
All right.
And then we'll have 2 weeks before the actual tournament.
Right.
And where it's, you know, we may have a few practice rounds, but really those 2 weeks are ours to do what we need to do. It's a public facility, it's a public park. It's, you know, open to anyone who wants to play, so we don't want to take that away totally for them and give them an opportunity to play the course. And we'll open, you know, really 2 weeks or a week after, 10 days maybe after the tournament, and, you know, get back out there and they can play what the pros play. That's the great thing about this place, that, you know, after watching Augusta, it's great and I'd love to go there, but nobody's ever going to get to play there. But you can watch this tournament on TV and make a tee time, sleep in the parking lot, and play the next week if you want to.
How's your crew doing?
My crew's doing good. I have a really excellent crew. Like, I have a lot of guys, you know, I've been here almost 20 years, and a lot of guys have been here almost the same amount of time.
Yeah.
And so I have a good experienced crew. I got assistants that have been with me for a few years now. I feel like they're all perfectionists in their own way, which, you know, sometimes they take it to a level that I'm not even thinking of, which is great.
Yeah.
So you just give them a little bit of rope and they run with it.
You know, as a golf course architect, what's important to you about the relationship with the superintendent and his staff?
Right. I think the big thing for us is just the open line of communication. I mean, they obviously know this property. They know how to deal with it. The guys have been here for a long time. So we're not at all involved with you know, specific input agronomically, but if they have issues that they feel are affecting their ability to give the conditions that we want, even on a day-to-day basis.
Sure.
And we can somehow modify the architecture in a way that helps that without detracting from the integrity of the design or the strategy, then we work together to figure those things out. And it could be as simple as, you know, widening an area or changing the elevation of an area that allows them to turn a sprayer a little bit better or turn a mower a little bit better. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of courses are judged on their appearance and their maintenance and their agronomy. So we want to present the best conditions that we can.
Is there a lot of topography? I mean, this green's pretty flat. I mean, it's fallen off out there in the front and approach, but is there a lot of rolls in these things?
So I'd say it's a mix and match, but it's certainly not like some other venues where every green is a challenge. I think there are some greens here where it's the pressure of hitting a 6-foot putt that looks straight. You know, just that
Yeah.
where can the golfers do that? I think the black is pretty straightforward. When people see it, it's you kind of know where you have to hit it, and you just have to get that execution down.
Right.
And it's not very tricky. It's just a stern, fair test of golf.
Right. So historically, this course has always been recognized as incredibly challenging and a great test of golf. But when you guys started to do your work, did you really understand how great of a championship venue you had in your hands there?
I think that we did, and I think we wanted to work hard to make sure that we didn't lose any of that.
Right.
That we retained the challenge that was here and even probably enhanced it from what it was before. Started doing the work in '98. Really, the USGA came and said they wanted to have the Open here, and Rees went around with them originally, and it was really more about trying to kind of rediscover what had been here before. Mm-hmm. So it was really kind of about more of a rediscovery effort and kind of bringing it back to its former glory. I mean, the way the players hit the ball today and their skill level, to keep a course as challenging, that's something that will really challenge them, is a challenge for us.
So this 11th green is really just a unique landform. I mean, just some masterful work done by Tillinghast back in the 30s, and then craftily manicured and improved by Rees Jones in the late 90s and early 2000s. You know, just some subtle shaving down of some of the bunkers just to create a little bit more movement and accentuate the original landform. So we're here on number 11 green, and this green among all of them here has a lot of movement. It's really a unique green set up here on this awesome landform. They added this section over here on what's the back left of the green, and what's interesting is you can see they grew the same type of surface here on site. So they matched up the Poanya, and by the time you get to tournament time, you won't even be able to notice that this is a new section. Hopefully they'll put a Sunday pin back here because it's definitely going to make it a really challenging hole. So Bethpage Black is well positioned and is sure to be a major championship test. Andy Wilson and Mike Hadley and the entire grounds team here are about to see all their hard work pay off as they present the 2019 PGA Championship. Don't forget to keep listening to the podcast. You can find it at thecoursereports.com. You can find it on Google Play or iTunes.